So Rory, welcome to Escape the Rat Race Radio. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me on, Christian. It's an absolute pleasure to be here talking about escaping the rat race, which
Yes.
that everybody does themselves and or has already done. I'm fantastic. Thank you. How are you?
Where in the world are you, Rory?
Right now I'm sitting in WeWork in Edinburgh, so maybe not so escaped the rat race, but I do live in North Berwick, which is, 10 beaches within 10 minutes. And we'll get into all that now, but, try to get to the beach, drop the kids off before school, try to get to the beach, try and get them on the beach in the afternoon. It doesn't matter what the weather. That's all about finding out what makes me tick and what I need in my life, and the sea and the beach is definitely that. But we'll get on to all that.
Well, we will, and I guess let's kind of get the backstory, Rory, for those people listening right now and maybe haven't had the good fortune of coming across you before. Would you mind just sharing
the right things?
Would you mind sharing a little bit about your business and how everything kind of built up to where you're at today?
Absolutely. What a higgledy-piggledy journey it's been. I'm originally from the Isle of Mull, which is a beautiful island off the west coast of Scotland. It's about the same size as the M25, but 2,000 people live inside it. Jimmy, morning. You know everyone. I set up my first business when I was 15 years old. I actually left school to run that business, which I was selling and servicing PCs on the Isle of Mull. And by the time I was 25, I'd tried 5 different enterprises, the biggest of which employed 10 people for 3 years in Edinburgh. And it was a tech sales outsourcing business. And then rather randomly, I was back in the pub on Mull, and I was chatting to somebody and telling them about my woes of trying all these different businesses and failing. And I called myself a serial failpreneur. And they said, you should really go on The Apprentice, because, of course, if you're a complete failure, that's where you go. No, I'm joking. So I applied for the TV program The Apprentice and got accepted after sort of 6 months of interviews and things like that. And this was series 2. And so I went down for the beginning of the filming, contract in hand. I was going to wear a kilt. Yes, I was. What a shame I didn't get on. Maybe that's why I didn't get on. The producers were coming out and going, you're going on, you're going on, you're not going on, you're going on. And eventually they came out and said, look, we can't explain it now, but you're not going on the show this time. We'll fly you back to Scotland. And the thing is, there's no way I was going to go back to Scotland with my tail between my legs. I told everybody on the island I was going to The Apprentice. So that's mum, dad, the dog, and a couple of sheep. So instead, I got to Heathrow Airport and looked at the different flights going out, and I saw, flight to Ibiza. So I hopped on that one, which is the natural place to go for any rejection. And rather randomly in Ibiza, I bumped into an oil broker. And this is when, life really shifted for me, because I moved down to London to become an oil broker, and 2 worlds collided, partying and being successful. The more I partied, the more successful I was. And I was a very successful oil broker. I started on crude oil, and I did that for 6.5 years. Really cut my, whatever you call it, on the crude oil desk. And then I had the opportunity to set up the jet aviation desk. And it's a desk that the company had tried with teams of guys to get into and failed. And I made them market leader in under 3 years. So I was very successful at my job. The thing about oil broking and city life, I mean, when you look at it, I was commuting by tube, and I was going to a windowless office every day. And I guess I just didn't realize the impact that was having on my life. I didn't realize, and I think I was probably using alcohol as an escape route for not listening to those signs in my body, in my mind, in my health. And I think a lot of people are in that situation. I think a lot of people are using alcohol as an escape route because they're not listening to what's truly going on for themselves. And the end result of that is the reality. I know that everybody who drinks regularly has no idea what impact alcohol is having on their life until they remove it. And I know that because we've now helped 70,000 people in 90 countries change their relationship with alcohol. People almost have to go through the process to realize it. So I'm jumping about a bit, but Once I decided I was going to, that's where all over the place. I came across this thing in 2013 called Headspace, right? And I'm sure we all know Headspace today, but in 2013 it was an early app, and it was Andy Puddicombe on all the videos, and before they brought out all the animations and glittery stuff. And I started meditating on the train in the morning and in the evening on the way home. And that's when I started to get awareness of this habit. And I was thinking, I think alcohol is holding me back. And I never really realized how much, but there was this itching in the back of my brain about this relationship with alcohol. And it kept itching and it kept itching. And I could start to see areas where, obviously going out till 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes and coming home, there's going to be friction at home with your wife, especially as I had a young child. But, you'd be around brokers, they'd be like, that's just the way it is, late train, oops, sorry. That was just the norm. But still, this scratching really kept going on. So I approached my boss one day and I said, look, I'm thinking about taking a break from booze. And he said, you're committing commercial suicide if you stop drinking. So I went away, and it took me about 6 months. It took me 6 months, again, meditating and asking the question in my mind and thinking, I really want to get rid of this thing. I really want to put it aside and see if I can do an extended break. I've done dry January a bunch of times. So in a way, I had to say goodbye to being the top broker, right? The top broker goes out, drinks, entertains, does all that life. And my boss has told me that I'm not going to be successful if I don't. I had to literally say goodbye to that person, which is a really, really big thing to do. And I don't think many people would make that decision. I think they would just stay focused on being the top person in their industry. So in making that decision, it was the best decision of my life. 90 days without booze totally transformed me. A decade of IBS disappeared. I felt less anxious, less depressed. I've struggled with ADHD my whole life, and I realized I was self-medicating to try and calm down that brain noise. And so all of these realizations came for real. And I was like, I can't see any downside. I grew my business by another 50% and reduced our cost by 30%. And I was like, look at these stats. Could you imagine them across the board? So the thing is, everything I thought about going or changing my relationship with alcohol was wrong. And I had to experience it for myself. So I got together with Andy, and Andy and I used to work at the same firm together, broking. We used to be thick as thieves, right? It would be Friday, midday, down at the curry house. Andy would be showing all the clients his hilarious magic tricks, and I'd be going around while they weren't looking, topping up their pint glasses with champagne. And so that, we were thick as thieves at it. I was going to go meet him, and he's now set up his own broking firm and been very successful. By the way, I will give you a chance to talk at some point. So Andy said, and he'd just done 6 months alcohol free. He'd done his 40th birthday back in Ireland without touching a drop, and he was literally half the guy, like he'd lost 2 stone or something. And we both sat there and said, look, there's something massive here. Nobody's talking about the advantages, the benefits, the positives of taking a break from booze. If you don't drink, you need to be a social outcast and have a bad relationship with alcohol. Oh, I didn't realize you had a problem. You need to be a problem person. Oh, you're an alcoholic. No, none of that. We were just seekers. We wanted to be better, fitter, faster, healthier, happier, better to have better relationships, more productive, or more energy. So that's basically where the idea of our business came from. And, in 2016, we launched 1 Year No Beer. It spread all over the world. We're now, over 70,000 members in 90 countries. We've got a team of 26 staff here. It's been very exciting times. And that's what we're up to.
Fantastic. So we are looking now at sort of 4 years in with the business, around about, which is, I know how quickly time flies. And in the last 4 years, it feels as well, not just alcohol has become, much more brought to the front in terms of, is it cool? It's almost cooler not to drink now. And maybe, the movement that you've created has played a big part in that, Rory. But the same with smoke. the same with smoking cigarettes. You know, it feels like that is something that's really becoming, you know, kind of, I know, almost uncouth now, you know, to be smoking. And the whole thing with mental illnesses has really come to the forefront now, you know, much more awareness around that. So it feels like all of these things together have really, which is great, have got the exposure that they deserve, or certainly understanding the risks and the problems associated with all of this. And when you set up in 2016, Ruari, you know, how did you go about actually defining what this business was going to look like? Was there anyone else out there doing something similar? You know, how did you prove the concept when you first started?
Okay, first thing is, when you just talked about there's a real shift. Let's just quickly put that into perspective. Alcohol consumption in Europe is growing. Alcohol consumption in the world is growing. The World Health Organization thinks by 2025 will have grown considerably in terms of alcohol consumption. You're an early adopter. I'm an early adopter, and One Year No Beer is very much in its early stages. There is a gargantuan paradigm shift coming, and it is happening very, very slowly. Yes, there's lots of stuff about sober popular and sober this and blah, 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 and it's definitely becoming more acceptable and more cool to not drink, and we see that in millennials, but we have a very, very, very long way to go before it's fully shifted. And then in terms of my journey, I can't wait to write my business book. And my business book is just don't do these things, right? Please, these things nearly cost me my life, and they cost me a fortune. Don't do these things, because I've done everything wrong. Every single bit has been wrong and bouncing off it backwards. So when we first came up with this idea in 2016, and one of the things that's really a thread through my life, you know, when I was 14, I wrote a letter to Richard Branson, and I said, I'm going to change the world one day, and I'm looking forward to having lunch with you. When we came out and launched this, originally, that was something that was very key to me, was about having a massive impact on the world. So I wasn't interested in helping a few people. I wasn't interested in doing a one-to-one coaching or consulting or anything like that. It was about building a digital product that could reach billions of people all over the world. And I believed that because of where we came from, as in two brokers, into an industry which is normally full of health professionals and everything else, I thought this would go viral all over the world. So we launched it and we gave it all away for free. And the reality is, over that first course of the year, we were running up personal six-figure bills, you know, it was hefty. And yes, it spread all over the world, but free isn't free. Free is fucking expensive for somebody. So that was the situation. But it did. The key thing is that from that free piece, you know, we had a following in Brazil, in India, in China. We had people popping up in Canada, and we had handwritten letters from people like saying, I've got my dad back, or thank you, you've changed my life. This has changed every area of my life. And we were like, this is amazing. You know, something so simple. Something so simple as just an alcohol-free challenge. And I think when I tell people this, they're like, oh, well, you know, I understand when people are addicts. No, these people are not addicts. Right? This is normal social drinkers. This is anyone who's drinking more than 3 glasses of wine a week will see a massive change in their life if they come and do our 90-day challenge. That we just know that as a fact. So 2017, we started, well, the tail end of 2016, I was pretty burnt out. We were still full-time oil brokers, both Andy and I, working at competitive shops. And that's a very, very intense job, you know. I was a desk head, running a team of guys, and then still trying to build this thing on the side. And we started trialing charging for it. And the amazing thing was we saw that people stuck to the program more and had better outcomes. So that meant we reinvested in the platform. And when you look at the reinvestment of the platform in 2017, it was probably November. And I said, right, let's get this launched in January, pulled together a team. It was an absolute disaster. It was a total and utter disaster. The product wasn't built properly. We spent months afterwards trying to fix it and support. The lesson here is don't rush into things. Plan them properly. Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. No matter how much you're visionary, that's me, is constantly driving the drum to just get things out there and launch. Don't listen to them. So 2017, and then I think sort of middle of 2017, I sent some tweets to a journalist after hiring a PR firm. And the PR firm had, for about 25 grand, had pretty much got zero PR. I think maybe a matchbox in the physical edition of the Daily Star, which didn't even mention the company's name. It was right. So anyway, I left there and I sent 10 tweets to journalists. And off the back of it, I got a 10-minute feature on BBC World News in 200 countries. Now, the thing about that is that a business to get a 10-minute feature on BBC World News is pretty unheard of. But because we are such a social impact business, obviously we got under the radar. And a friend of mine called me up and he said, Ruari, I've just seen you on the news. I think what you're doing is amazing. I'm meeting the Dalai Lama next week. Would you like to meet him? And a week later, I'm in Pisa and I'm standing in front of about 5,000 people asking the Dalai Lama a question on a stage. And then later we stayed at his hotel. And what was amazing about this whole weekend for me was that everything in my life made sense. And this is quite bizarre, but the letter to Richard Branson, the journey, the failed startups, everything, the successes in all broking firm, the drinking, everything led me to this moment. I just knew that this is my purpose. I was like, this is why I'm here. So when my escape the rat race moment came, it was in meeting the Dalai Lama, because on Monday I handed in my notice. And I think it's a testament to how I was as an oil broker, but also, incredible company. They'd supported me in running this business on the side. I would have a laptop open at my desk, answering customer support about alcohol problems. Meanwhile, picking up the phone between BP and Shell and doing a cargo deal, right? And then shouting it over and getting back to answering customer support. And, big shout out to my team who put up with that. Big shout out to the company who allowed me to do that. But in a way, they saw what I was doing. They saw I was birthing something that could have a real impact on the world. I guess not everyone is going to get the chance to meet the Dalai Lama when they're thinking about going and do something. But I think when you're contemplating get out the rat race, for me, it started with meditation. Meditation builds a gap between stimulus and response, right? And you could look at that across all different areas, just from stubbing your toe to the reaction you do or don't want to have. When the gap is really tight and you're drinking coffee and alcohol, they shorten that gap down. So in other words, you stub your toe and you lash out and punch somebody, right? Or the moment something gets like this and you find yourself really snappy. Well, meditating builds that gap so that you see it. Oh, I stubbed my toe. Breath. I'm not going to let that cloud my day. I move on. And you can be like that in so many areas of your life. But when you start looking at your day, what are you doing? What is your job? What is the impact that you're having? What do you want to do? What is your skill set? What do you want written on your tombstone? What do you want people to say about you? Is what you're doing really congruent with who you truly are? And I think that starts with meditation, because meditation helps you really see that piece. So, And all of this sort of led to me into that moment from meeting the Dalai Lama when I was so aligned with my meaning and purpose that I just knew there was not another day could I spend in an office doing that thing when I knew I had to get on with this mission. So yeah.
Let me try and pick up and pull out some of the lessons from no, because I think that's a great point for us to kind of pause and just for everyone listening right now who is still in a job and still working 9 to 5 or in much longer hours, as I'm sure was your case, but they've got the idea, they've got the nucleus of the business, and they're trying to cram in any hours they can find. They've got a family, so they're doing, a few hours in the evening, getting up early, doing some weekends. And at first, or sometimes for quite some time, you can be working and just not seeing any results and questioning, am I doing the right thing? Is this ever going to happen? And I think some of the things you said there about, just having that belief and starting with the end in mind, that you knew, the absolute overall mission was just help as many people as possible around the world. And that perhaps pulled you through some of those difficult times. What would you say to people who, are maybe 6 months, 12 months in, and they're not seeing results yet, but they do still believe in the product? What's important to help you through those early days?
Yeah, it's a really, really great question, because when you look at our journey, you know, the first 12 months, it was non-revenue generating. It was just shelling out lots of money. It was an unbelievable amount of work till 3 o'clock in the morning and back up at 6. So I think so it looked like, I mean, did we have traction? Didn't we? Could we monetize it? Where are we going? What are we doing? Blind leading the blind. I think it comes down, I mean, sorry to be cheesy, but it comes down to that passion piece. And I think, you know, we can get confused between that sort of lustful passion, which is, oh, it's shiny and new and exciting and it's technology and, you know, woohoo, it's not my day job and I can see a future out of it. And then true passion, which is, could I today, you know, knowing that we've got all the staff and the progress and all these things in place, could I blow all that up today and go back to being standing out on the street and spreading my message? And for me, there's absolutely no question, yes. I mean, I would get back out there. I would start it all again. It would hurt, and I would probably cry in thinking about going through all this again. But it's in me. I'm living and breathing it. I'm birthing something which I'm incredibly passionate about. I never really thought I was going to be doing this. Like, I was the larger-than-life guy who would have dinner and then say, do you fancy a whiskey? Because I knew my whiskeys inside and out. It was like part of my brand. I partied my ass off in my 20s. I never thought I would be doing this. But I know I have something which can change your life. And it's so simple. It's the simplest thing. And I know that most people are out there in the world searching for this holy grail, this silver bullet, this thing that's going to help them change. They're trying to change their diet. They're trying to eat more. They're trying to eat right. They're going to all these different things. I'm going to do my DNA thing. I'm going to search out this. Just do a 90-day no drinking challenge. Like, trust me, start there, because that will open the door to everything else. So getting back into your question, because I did go waffling on there, I really do think it's being very passionate about it, because that's what keeps you going. If you're congruent in yourself with what you are trying to do, then it doesn't matter how much work it takes, because you're doing what you love and you're doing what you're passionate about and what you were put here to do.
And, you know, it's often said that you learn a lot more from your mistakes than from your successes. So with the, you know, the highs and lows of the last few years, Ruari, if you were looking back now, what would be some of the things that you would definitely do differently in terms of getting the business kind of up and running? And you know, what are some tips for people now who may be wasting time doing things that are just not important?
Focus, which is hilarious for somebody with ADHD. I'm not sure. I mean, you know, everything happens for a reason. We are here because we are here, and I'm not sure. You know, it would be great to sit and say, "Oh, I could have done this or I could have done that," but then there were important learning curves, and each of those failures needed to happen along the way, and each failure birthed something new. And every time I'm in pain, I sort of take a deep breath and realize that pain is the part of growth, you know, that usually follows the brighter part. So if you're in the thick of it right now, if you are in between the job, trying to get out into this rat race, and you're feeling all the pain, love it, because that is you about going through that transformation into the next stage. So yeah.
No, I agree. You do sometimes just have to take that first step, and you're going to make the mistakes, and I think we were all in the same boat, right? And you look back and you sometimes end up at the same spot you were in a year back, and you've gone all around the houses, but hey, as you say, that is part of the process.
If it's more about those who can't do teach, then the bits that I can't do, that I would suggest that you don't do, are focus. So make sure you spend lots of time in the planning stage, which I never do, and make sure you really plan it out. Probably if you are a high visionary ADHD individual like yourself, then get an integrator, and the book Rocket Fuel is one of the best for finding the person who is going to help you implement from a process or operations perspective. Get that person early. Find them whatever you possibly can do. Don't have your accountant write your legal documents. That cost me about $250,000. Don't hire slow, fire fast. I think would be the other top tips. That's helpful.
So talk to us, Rory, a little bit about the development of the product, the challenge itself. You know, I'm sure it looks kind of different in some ways to how it did at the beginning. I know essentially, I'm sure at the heart of it, it still remains the same. But for someone who kind of, you know, is looking to create an online business primarily, and I believe you do events as well as part of the 1 year no beer, right? But primarily, I guess it's driven by the online 90-day challenge. So how has that product evolved, you know, with feedback along the way?
Lots. So, you know, with 28-day challenge, 90-day challenge, 365-day challenge, there's so much coming in terms of that platform. So we're building our app. We're building our ambassador model. So think like Weight Watchers for alcohol, but so users become inspired by the sober movement, want to create an audience themselves. We give them the platform that for whether they want to go out into social media or blog or encourage people to go and change their relationship with alcohol. We basically give them the tools and the monetization to create a lifestyle business out of it. And as well, offline, if they're running events. And if you think about these events, so we're not going to community halls and sitting around and talking about problems. No, we're going to festivals, gigs, we're going to Spartan races, we're going to Tough Mudders, we're going to park runs. Those are where our meetings are because we're living life better. That's the purpose. We're not going to sit and talk quietly about how terrible life is. We're going out to say life is amazing when you stop taking a drug, which is what alcohol is. And then I think the really big piece is that we realize that this is not just about alcohol. It never was. We use alcohol as an excuse to get people to focus on their personal development. So leave alcohol at the door for 28 days or 90 days. Focus on positive psychology, mindfulness, exercise, nutrition, diet, all of those things. But the key thing is, once you start changing your relationship with a negative behavior like alcohol, you build a platform for self-worth. And that platform becomes a platform to transform other areas. So maybe you want to look at other habits, and that might be caffeine, sugar, it might be porn, gambling, all of these other things. And so our behavior change model, we're looking to drop that into different verticals.
And you've said, Rory, one of the best things, you know, is the impact that you know you're having. Yeah. What's one of the other things that you love most about being a business owner?
Being a business owner. I love surrounding myself with a team. I mean, I have to be careful with the words, but in a way, because of the ADHD, I've always struggled to exist like normal people exist. You know, I lose everything. I forget where I'm going. I don't turn up to most meetings. If I didn't have a wife and staff, then I wouldn't be here on this call right now. And I'm not, you know, so I need a team around me to function. And I find that, you know, is so much better when you run your own business and you do have a team around you. But I think that when you find the right people, and this is the thing, I wrote about this, an article with my ADHD as my superpower. You know, when I was younger, I tried to take my own life a couple of times because the noise of the ADHD and the unknowing is intense in the brain. And having people around you who take away the normal boring function stuff of making sure you're actually wearing clothes and that you park in the right spot and all of those things means that I can go off at a great rate of knots at the vision piece. And so that's the exciting part of this journey, is that I know I'm going to move 100 times faster as I start to add people into the team. That was kind of a long-winded answer. But.
That's great. And for the next 12 months, I should say, Roy. We are fast-forwarding there. The next 12 months, Rory, what's exciting for you? What's happening in the business? New developments?
Loads of products, loads of new. So app, platform, coming, rewards, corporate program is going into the likes of Amazon. We've got a lot of space in the corporate. We're working on partnerships in the health insurance industry. We're going to start working with franchisee holders, and we have a number of countries. So, but sort of middle of next year, we'll be in 2 locations with our franchisee holders. So it's we've gone from startup. And we're now in scale-up mode, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, that sounds great. So my final question, Roy, I always ask my guests, for those people who are listening now and they're maybe squashed up on the underground or they're in the traffic jam on their way to or from work, and they know that there's something bigger and better inside of them. They really just want to break free, but something is holding them back. Most likely it's fear. What would you like to say to our listeners right now?
Go meditate. If I can help you, then shoot me a message. I'm very active on Facebook. I always listen to my messages there. Emails ruari@oneyearnobeer.com. Happily give you a kick up the bum. But, that's it. Feel the fear and do it anyway. But I will say that in that is that there is a right time. And I was very lucky with my company that they supported me. And so I had a financial backing behind me for the first 2 years. I didn't need to take, in fact, it was 4 years before I took a single penny out of 1 Year No Beer. So I was a volunteer for 4 years of building this business up until spring of this year. Not a single penny had been taken out. So to be not a drain on your business because you've put yourself in that financial position by being in the rat race, that is an intelligent way to go about it.
Yeah, that is good advice indeed. And finally, where should people head to find out more about the challenge and everything else you got going on?
Yeah, oneyearnobeer.com, Facebook /1yearnobeer, Instagram /1yearnobeer. Come and take the challenge. It's coming up to January very soon. And that's the biggest thing I want to say to people is that there's a big difference between not drinking and changing your relationship with alcohol. Not drinking is what you normally do. You just abstain for a month. You count down the days to the 1st of February so you can have a drink again. You cancel all your friends because you're a social hermit. All you're doing is reaffirming the limiting belief that alcohol is something that you need, love, and enjoy. And those are the things that we're going to remove by going through our challenge so that you just don't want to drink as much or at all anymore. So if you're going to do Dry January this year, come and do it with us because we'll actually help you change your relationship with alcohol.
Yeah, and you very kindly offered listeners of Escape the Rat Race Radio a 5-day trial as well. Yeah,
so we've got a 5-day free trial and also there's the mindset hacks which will help you start to think about alcohol in a different route. So we'll give you both those links, or you can just go to oneyearnobeer.com and you can see them on the page there.
Definitely, and the video recording of this interview and those links and downloads, you can find those by heading to etrr.online/podcast96. Ruari, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, and I'm wishing you all the best luck for the future.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on board. Well done, everyone.